Dís maríomh go léir agus tá fáilte roimh go dtín podcréile seo. 9-8 atá phléagaing, blianan ar bhuaig tibredár an créimh na hamána, corcaigh créimh na pelle, agus tá áthas arm Gwyl Bert a dimmer ins na cluichí sin ling ar lína. Nicky English a bhí mar amánaí na bliana an blian sin tá sé ling. Good morning. Hello, Nicky.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Very good, thank you very much. Denny Allen a dimmer agus bhí mar chaptéin ar a bhuirean áirithe sin ó réana Hanímo agus ó chorcaigh. Tá sesin ling freisin. Hello, Denny. How are you?
I'm very good, Mike. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Agus tá drochtar hain Brian Tarsling. Dis mar go Brian Consol Cursey.
Ma, Brian Consol Cursey.
Anna Bahar Fad. Jenny, we might talk to you first about the lead up to 1989. I mean, obviously you'd been beaten by Meath in the previous two All-Ireland finals, so this was a big one for Cork. But if I can rewind a little bit just to start off, 1973 was the previous All-Ireland win with Billy Morgan as captain. You were there or thereabouts for that particular team. You'd made your debut, I think, in 1972, but then disappeared off the scene. Can you just explain to us how you weren't involved with the team that won the All-Ireland in 73?
Yeah, I played in the Munster final of 72, and I played the first National League match like in October, or maybe I played two matches after that, and they were my last two matches because I decided I'd go trying soccer for a while, and I joined Cork Hibs. So it became an issue then with actually my club, which I can understand. Like, they wanted the full commitment, and I wanted to give a full commitment to soccer for a period of whatever. I didn't know at the time how long I was going to stay at it, but I gave the commitment to the soccer, and the Nemo footballers then said that they were going to leave me out of the panel, which was fair enough at the time. But the selector in the Nemo team was also the manager of the Cork football team, so that kicked me basically out of the Cork football team as well. I was out for 2 years, so
this wasn't connected. It wasn't connected. The ban was gone since 1971, so this wasn't a sort of a retrospective looking and saying this guy's playing soccer. He's involved with Cork Hibs. You won the FAI Cup that year in 73, so we want him out. There was nothing of that there, was there?
Well, I suppose behind it, you wouldn't know. That was probably behind it. There was a bit of that behind it, but not with my club, But I'd say that other guys would have used it all right to punish me a bit. I felt that there was a bit of punishment going on as well, So, but I just got over it. I said it was my own. I made the initial decision, so I kind of took the brunt of it myself. But there was people that were glad that it was kind of heaped out for a while.
Okay. And I suppose, Nicky, for yourselves then, it was also a big year because you'd been coming in Munster. You had a few Munster titles put back to back, but it had been 18 years in Tipperary since you'd last won an All-Ireland back in 1971. So you grew up in that era where, I suppose, Tip were playing second fiddle. So what was the pressure like for that team to deliver in 89?
I think it had certainly built up a bit more by 89, Michael. We had won the Munster final in 87, and we'd kind of gone another step. In 88, we'd won the All-Ireland semi-final and got to the All-Ireland. Whereas in 89, we kind of had to win the All-Ireland, really, to maintain progression, if you like. And certainly at the time, it was expected that Tip and Galway were, could contest the Ireland. That we'd done it in 87 and 80, well, with semi-final 87, but Ireland final in 88. And really, we felt we could probably come out of Munster. So yeah, there was a certain amount of pressure, I'd say, to progress and win the All-Ireland, because Tip hadn't won it, as you say, since 1971, and the hunger and the fever had really built up in 87 and 88, and it was time. Babs was in his third year as well as manager, so there wasn't going to be any excuses really if we didn't win in 89. It was going to be. It may have been tougher in 1990 to do it. That was the feeling we had.
Okay, well, to me, Brian is talking again second. Ach Rivishin, just kind of olive and rather vega going in Sangora Sean now. Gavekami the Rantis na Clihimura on Vlianora Hishin, August Gannon meet play or Hishud in a year. So Tosomid Marshin Lakianis na Clihimura, August Clehe Club of Ian, August Hushka Wilshire Shinan, Nogwil Denny Allen, Avi Marval, the Rena Hanimo, a Hui Kofada la Clehe Canish na Heron and Vlianora his son, August Hugur Hain, August Clanangoil, Iger Hela, Sachlehe Canish.
Outside, to Mick Dorgan. Being patrolled there by John Dowling. This is Eoin O'Mahony, and that's a lovely score after just 1 minute of play. Declan Rock trying to keep the Nemo man out. This is Dennis O'Sullivan, the UCC art student, giving it to Neil Creedon, would you believe? This is Eoin O'Mahony going for glory, and he's got it. A magnificent goal by Eoin O'Mahony. Break comes to Tony McManus, bursting his way through, and that's the first score for Fine Gael. Playing with a little bit more confidence now. Paul McManus giving it inside to Tony. This is Eamon McManus Jr. hitting a rocket. Oh, a magnificent goal. This is Dennis O'Sullivan, and he floats one high and over the bar, and that is the icing on the cake. A very fine performance by Nemo Rangers, and overall fully deserved.
So didn't you a fifth title for Nemo there, and of course the club that would go on to win 7 in total. Have you memories from that day?
I have. I mean, I was in between. I was in between whether I was going to play with inter-county anymore after that, you know. But that victory that day, Billy Morgan pushed me on a bit, and one of the other two selectors thought that I had something still to offer to inter-county. So maybe that day, if we didn't win, I probably wouldn't have gone on with Cork, you know, in '89, because I was really after the 2 defeats to me, like, oh well, in '88 the replay and the second match or the first match, I kind of was a bit. I thought I had enough done at that stage. I felt that I hadn't the hunger to go on, you know. So that victory that day kind of pushed me on to stay with Cork, you know, which was good. I mean, there was it's certainly a lot of sympathy after the match, like that Fine Gael, because I think they lost. I think that was their 4th or 5th.
No, that was their 4th in total, and their 3rd in a row. Yeah, and they lost the following year as well, so 4 in a row.
So yeah, which was like, I had friends in the McManuses and things like that, and there was a sympathy there, but obviously it came after the match, like, and also like they certainly would have been nice to see them win 1 at least, you know, but I don't think they ever did afterwards.
They didn't, and strangely enough, no team other than yourselves, Corofin and Crossmaglen have appeared in All-Ireland finals more often than Clonmel Gael, but unfortunately Clonmel Gael have never won one. And Nicky, I don't know, were you interested in football, in particular in the club and what Nemo were at? I know you were in UCC at the, you know, a number of years previously, and you'd obviously have followed the fortunes of Nemo. What did you make of them as a team?
I always think Nemo are, you know, the premier club team really in football, you know, going back to that time. Yeah, I would have come across plenty of the lads from Nemo over the years in UCC, etc. And yeah, I actually played in Nemo Rangers ground a couple of times for UCC, but on the hurling side, yeah, challenge matches and that over the years.
Okay, Brian, Termi Tussishtachanish. I mean, you're referring to Nemo. I was going to be in the Disport shot Ani Akare Vehagwing. Nemo and there in the smoke. Crevach a riamh, tá 7 cosisiúd mar champaráid le 6 cainnes dul amatá Gréanna hena Crusha agus 5 is a Corofina. Current 3 club I gamparáid le Chéile.
Well, in hours after bit son the club is star a hosting comórta seo Lewis na Shaftadi. Count Maslato she go good in for sort stile orne ella solidentje van Park in Eger. Well, wie in Boson Tashanishke Corofina. Wie sé Gréanna Nemo sa Shaftadi agus go hardest na Hachtadi. Agus an sats na nóchadi agus beidir na náhis loha Gréanna hena Crusha. Ach tá sé samúil na fór na sin bhí an curchaigh céannacha stíl anias pelle an fel a déanamh na hebre tosaid an scochacha agus mar a deireadh chuir mór an fórnach an parke ina Gine agus ní mór agad a búteart a sal das néidir neach agus, you know, hitting Thomas Fine Gael an lás an chomá. Maidir le néad a chur hendó sa trí, sé dacra sin íana bheith sé dacradul haar chur a finna fé láthir. Tá stoilm le bhéal eile fad buinteach ag an bhuiin sin agus tá sé treis choíocht nua a sa chéile a bhoftan an son mianar sicate. Ní ana me hendó trídíomh ach is iad son na fórna club na tríking sin is dar a churchan park a riamh dírin.
Denny, you've probably watched Corofin in recent years and their achievements in the 3 in a row in Croke Park. They're a remarkable team. You know, can you compare what Nemo say were achieving back in your day versus what Corofin have achieved in the modern era?
I think that, I mean, Corofin are a bit ahead of all the teams they've been playing in the last couple of years. Like, I mean, we had hard-fought games and we got through them, but like there is a gap in the last couple of years. Corofin look much better than most of the teams they play, you know, so they are certainly a very, very superior team, even up to today, scoring 7 goals last week again. Like the thing starts again for them, so they look like they're going to be there for another couple of years anyway, very easily, but they are certainly a superior team. It's not like a Corkman to be saying that there's another team better than us, but I certainly would. I'm glad that they weren't around when I was playing.
This is the day to get everything off your chest, Denny. That's what this conversation's about. Carculor, bugami the rag machingadi ar gate lehe amona. Agus sho iglehe canish na straha. Hugsha le chéile an ur na vitration trachamortas a vohin of Lian Rice Tibradoran. In Agna Forna a voigan chrev bin Galef.
Style. That was for Pete Finnerty. A huge delivery down towards Anna Ryan. Bobby Ryan is there with Anna Ryan. Joe Harry's made it beautifully. That is a spectacular goal. Awkward angle. He's hit it in low. And it's gone all the way to the goal. A goal for Tipperary. Side to the unmarked, totally unmarked Pat Malone. Pat McGrath into Cleary. Oh, it's a goal. Galway's captain and fullback. McGrath linking up with Colin Bonner. Inside. Towards Leahy. A goal! A goal! That's an incredible total. Spreading that ball around, inviting the other players to be involved in the attacks. Jerry Burke here, one of the newcomers this year. Batted out by Conal Bonner. Not very convincingly. And as well as Roger Nocton. And Nocton has put over his second point. 7.5 minutes to go. So a crucial moment to the league final. He scored! And Galway have won! A superb game of hurling.
Victory for Galway there, and I mean, considering that you played them in the All-Ireland the previous years, really was starting to come together now, the two sides. Every time they faced off, I suppose, were trying to get one up on each other. Yeah,
and again, Galway were able to confirm superiority in that match. I remember I wasn't actually playing that day. I got injured in the semi-final. I think we had beaten Kilkenny in the semi-final and I hurt my ankle. But I remember that was Pat McGrath that was scoring a couple of goals there from frees. He played a very good match for Tip that day, and I think it was one of the first days that Cormac Bonner played at full forward as well, and he became instrumental really later on in the summer in the Tipperary team. He hadn't actually been playing in 87 or 88. He had only just come on the panel late in 88, and Pat McGrath was actually corner forward in the first round of the championship as well. Pat, I don't know whether people know, Pat is father of Noel McGrath and John McGrath, the current Tipperary players. He was a fantastic player in his day.
And just in relation to Cormac Bonner, the previous year in the All-Ireland, the Galway defence had held yourself, I think, and Pat Fox pretty quiet for that particular day. Did the introduction of Cormac Bonner allow ye that little bit more freedom to get the scores?
Yeah, certainly Cormac added a huge amount of power and strength to it. I mean, the 88 All-Ireland was interesting in the sense that there was a very strong wind there on the day, and we felt in the second half that we got very tight and we closed up. At half time on 88 we probably thought we could win the game, but like we never really played, never created any space, if you like, which is a great word nowadays. But like we were all in full forward line, nearly competing for puckouts from Ken Hogan, which is not really what you want ultimately, because it's easy to close it down. And if you did happen to win the ball, there was a huge cluttering of our own guys and Galway lads. It was hard to get space, but Cormac certainly added a huge amount of power to that line, and he was very direct. If he got the ball, he was going to run at someone, and a lot of the scores that we managed to create managed to score after that were really created by Cormac. Do you know what I mean? He was doing a lot of the donkey work there in the latter half of 89.
All right. So Tibredáin mar sin a callún cluiche canis na stratha a chuisteach le gréibh chomórtas na móin. Chomórtas gan áras a bhí buairte a cabichéarta mar rá gábhlíonn in igi chéile, so I dodal den tríú bua as a chéile an tamsa for an úntais an chomórtas sin Portláirige a has I riad agus tedal ibre trí.
Bonner across to the other wing towards Nicky English, a first chance to make an impression. Peter Welch's marker, high up into the air from Nicky English, that looks on its way and it's over the bar. The opening score comes after 42 seconds. Paul Delaney, this is Bobby Ryan, the great-hearted central defender. Cody Prendergast has put it over the bar. Waterford's first score greeted by a huge cheer from the Waterford fans, the Ballyduff man. Tipperary looking the stronger, but Waterford very much in the match. Pat Ryan, down it goes towards Jerry Connors, trying to give it in play, did so successfully. It's a goal! A goal by Liam O'Connor! Colin Bonner trying to read that one well, with Noel Crowley, fiercely committed, and oh, that was a wild swap by Crowley that time. And the referee has the notebook out again. Did he send off? The free has come in. Liam O'Connor getting onto it. It's a goal! A goal belatedly for Waterford by Kieran Delahanty. So Tip then have done it. The hot favourites justify their high rating and win a 3 in a row in Munster. The 4th time the county has done the hat-trick.
Nicky, a pretty physical game there.
Yeah, there was. I think Waterford were quite inexperienced, really. We had much more experience than them, and we had regularly playing them in the league, and we had the edge over Waterford at the time. They were, and then there was a couple of, like, I think Noel Crowley and Damien Byrne were eventually sent off. So I mean, the match petered out, and there were some, there was some heavy pulling at times. Actually, that was the first Munster final that was ever televised, actually, and that was probably not.
Was that a factor for the players? Would that have added something to it in the lead up to it?
Not really for us, anyway. To be honest, you know what I mean. I don't think it mattered. We were very focused in '89. We had beaten, and we had been in Páirc Uí Chaoimh to play Limerick beforehand in the semi-final. So I think we were confident enough that on the day we could beat Waterford. We had, we played them very, very often in the league, and we'd always come out on top. And we felt that if we could get the ball in around their full back line, we certainly had the edge in there, and that was really the way it proved. And Cormac Bonner was starting. He started in the Munster final. He didn't start the Munster semi-final against Limerick, but he came in at half time and added a lot, and the team was starting to gel. And it was a better team than '88. You had, like, Declan Ryan was after getting bigger physically and stronger, and John Lahey, and Conal Bonner, they were younger players in '88 just coming on, and of course Declan Carr came in the middle of the field. So the team was taking shape nicely, and that was easy enough win on the day, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so Galibh Tibredáin beceart mar 3 go dtí cluiche a cheannis na hair, and Galibh a bheith amach rompa. Ach mada leis na peladóí an son, well, bhí Corcaigh agus Ciaríoch an casa ar a chéile aon uair bháin eile ag cluiche ceannis na mún. An tamsa gan áras tréis blianta fada a chahabh sa bhásach, bhí Corcaigh tréis an plíde a chasa agus bhí buanna á háid go siúd anis. Conna sa bheith an tam seo, bhí 47,000 duine I láthair I Gilorna den cluiche ceannis.
How many countries can you recognise in there? And away from Tony Davis, down that left side. Owen Liston was making himself available. Spillane in full flight, nudged high by Slocum. Holds off the challenge, and he gets a very good point. And so little between them for so long in so many Munster finals. This is Paul McGrath, curling delightfully. That's a lovely score. It's 4 points to 3. Coffey's free quickly into John O'Driscoll, unmarked. Oh, it's a goal! A goal by John O'Driscoll. And a brilliant piece of quick thinking. Paul McGrath getting it back to McCarthy. Cork now trying to really stamp home their advantage. That's John Cleary across towards Dave Barry. Breaks down to Paul McGrath. And over the bar. They've never managed to win the three. Tom Spillane and Kerry standing in their way. Ambrose O'Donovan to Pat Spillane. Back to O'Donovan. Oh, great goal! That is a brilliant goal by Ambrose O'Donovan. It's all over. Cork retain their Munster crown and create their own page in history by winning the Munster Cup for the third year in succession.
And that game, Denny, preceded Mick O'Dwyer actually retiring as Kerry manager after the huge input that he had over a long number of years. You'd spent a good while playing Kerry in the earlier part of your career, before that sort of mid hiatus that you had, and before you came back for 89, and almost all of them you'd lost. I think you'd lost 8 Munster finals in a row against Kerry. Was that? Am I right in thinking that was the first time you actually won the Munster final in Killarney?
Yes, it was. Yeah, that the one and only time. I was going to try and make up an excuse there to say I was injured that day, because I think I saw as much myself as Nicholas did in the injury that he said he was injured. I was going to make up that excuse. Yeah, it's 8 in a row was a record, and I was really wanted to go for 10 in a row, but we spoiled it by getting that winning down in Killarney. But it's so hard to beat Kerry. It's so hard to beat Kerry at the best of times, but down in their own backyard, it's virtually impossible. You'd really want to play good, or else they'd really want to play bad for it to happen, So it was a massive breakthrough for us that day. Even though we had beaten them, that was the third time we beat them, but it was still a massive thing to go down to Killarney and beat them,
And was that something, because obviously you as you say yourself, you had beaten them, now this is the third year in a row, but the final step then, the Meath finals of the previous 2 years had gone against you. Did winning that day in Killarney give you another little bit of self-belief that you could close out the deal as regards the All-Ireland that year?
Yeah, it did. I mean, we knew that we were going to be, if we wanted to be successful, we were going to have to beat Kerry and Dublin by the draw that was made out before it, and away to Dublin then as well was, and then going into the final, I suppose we weren't cocky, but because we had 1-0 at that stage, but we really got a severe match against Mayo in the final as well. And it was the game was in the melting pot with 10 minutes, quarter of an hour to go in that match as well. One of the things I found about the final against Mayo was that there was a lot of criticism that the match was, for the want of a word, too sporting, and that it was all football. I just never got to the hang of that. I thought it was a very good contest between us. It certainly wasn't dirty, but there was no one getting out of the way of each other either. But so I don't know that people wanted to be like the tough matches that we played against Meath, but it certainly was a match that looked to me, looking at it after, it was very highly. It was a very high game played with a good attitude by both teams,
And when you heard that Meath were gone out of the Leinster Championship, was that a relief that you weren't going to have to take them on later on in that year?
Well, I suppose it was. I mean, we didn't play well in any of the matches, and it's not an excuse. The Meath played better than us, but we just found them difficult to play against, And I suppose, trying to think back at the time, it did give us the feeling that if we played well in the final, it would be an open game as such, and that, with a team that beat you twice in an All-Ireland final, you certainly would be relieved if they're out of the way,
Yeah. Brian, cad cheapantas, I mean, an dóla am rud ag raibh Corcaigh agus an bhítre simmert na chéile den dríor bliain as a chéile go mbeadh an torra difriúil ag dearan lei?
Der sin mé dhéana na an Tarkish na stáilna ag mar sin. Chuoine go rimríad an éidir an ócha, so, dearan sicóla leat go deastíine tréiste caiún bhá bliana sa chéile gine na fórna chéine, go deastíine bula le horíiseach le ceanna agus bucha ar a son. But mar dúir daoine son annach lethe bethe gine bhuió ach bhí an son an bhliain gion Corcaigh agus an bhí le chéile, so fuair Corcaigh an deis an bhí such le canis agus dá mí a ceachna agus íon dur an bhacht ortha. Ach, bhí trí cín de chréibh go, bhí Ciarí techt go deir ré, bhí mé go feis trí chréibh na áisce as Ciarí idir 8 cargas 8 sé. Ach sa chléis na dír ficinn Sullivan, bhí an Shanach Lúin Jack ó Pat Spillane agus cúpla duine le mar sin Charlie Nelligan agus an Lúin Nuair nuair bhí Morgan Nix agus Connie Murphy's Tini Fleming agus bhí an Clasóga Fowlin na gar bhí na Shanlats a teach go deir ré bhí ón listna chum agus níor se go maith násam. So bhí fuirna ga Corcaigh bhí treis dul an neart go neart, mar bhí nic rá le gachan bhíon tasna dul cé níos a hir, agus cégur na clé canis coibh go, bhí an bhuiidir cheirech le canis machchas a chéile, so bhí an an a láidir agus stoch ní bh nach ceistama nó go múdíist ceann.
All right. So Nish Bugam in the right, Gadi Clehi Lachanish Naher, and I suppose Nikki, in terms of the hurling All-Ireland semi-finals, the big move here was that Antrim beat Offaly. Now, that to us looking at it from this perspective many years on was a huge shock. But Antrim were playing Division 1 hurling a lot around that time. So for you as a player, how big a deal was it that Antrim actually qualified for the final?
I wouldn't think it was a huge. I mean, it wasn't a huge shock. We had played them in the All-Ireland semi-final in 88 and had plenty of trouble. I think it wouldn't be a shock that they would put Offaly right to the wire, but you'd expect, Offaly maybe at the end to come through still at the same time. So no, I don't think anybody expected Antrim would beat Offaly, but at the same time, they were very dangerous opponents. As you say, they were in Division 1. Like, there's some great players, like the Donnellys were very good players. James Kieran Barr was a very good player. Alcan McFetridge, like they had very good forwards. James McNaughton was a great defender. Lord Mercy since, so they were very dangerous. And it was interesting at the time as well. The two semi-finals were played together. So what would happen is, you're expected to beat Antrim in the first match, and the crowd is coming in for the second match. And if Antrim are in it, then all the Galway and Tipperary supporters start shouting for Antrim. And it becomes a very, very difficult situation. We found that the year before. If Antrim are still in the game with 10, 15 minutes to go, then it becomes a real problem altogether. And that's what happened actually. They got some great goals, Alcan McFetridge. And so a long answer to your short question, it wouldn't have been the greatest surprise of all times, but at the same time, it was a surprise. And I remember being in the dressing room. We were waiting to go out against Galway, and normally the noise peters out. You don't hear so much noise, but the noise was building and building and building, and we knew there was something funny going on in the sense that maybe Antrim were beaten Offaly, and I think that probably heightened the tension actually when the result came through for the Tip Galway match, because with all due respect to Antrim, Offaly were probably going to be more dangerous opponents in the All-Ireland final than Antrim ultimately were going to be. And I think for the players of Galway and Tipperary, everyone knew that they were going to be playing one another from early on in the year, most likely. But it was going to be an All-Ireland semi-final, and you had to play the final after that. But as news filtered through that Antrim were after beating Offaly, as important as the Galway game was, the stakes went up a bit higher again, and that was for sure.
All right. Well, feicimid mar sin na book faointí sárch lethe go deo I fáilí agus Antrim dá áite lethe canis na Héireann.
Which Jim Troy watches carefully and then unleashes an almighty puck downfield. Down towards Joe Dooley. Played very impressively in the Leinster Championship. Well blocked down by Paul McKillen. Tries to give it to his midfield partner. It comes to Mark Corrigan. Could this be the first score? It is. Up against Jim Troy, Aidan Fogarty and Eugene Coughlin. Fogarty, Troy and Coughlin against McCarry from Lochgiel. He's going for goal and he's got it! Beaver McCarry has done it for Antrim. Well, the people might have come to Croke Park to watch Galway and Tipperary, but this could well turn out to be a thriller as Niall Patterson dropped it. He put up his hurley and it's a goal for Offaly. Picking up a little bit in tempo as James McNaughton responds to the encouragement from the crowd here. Drops the ball down towards the corner forward off McFetridge. Yes! Getting it inside this time to Brian Donnelly. Antrim fighting for every ball. Offaly just not able to get their act together. Ball comes in talking McFetridge. Yes! Magic McFetridge. In comes Aidan McCarry. This could well be it. Yes! Oh, I don't believe it. A rocket that has put Antrim surely into the All-Ireland hurling final. Remember today, Antrim qualify for the very first time since 1943.
Rian bhí tríchúil glanad in na fórna, so bhí sé compórda golóir de Antrim agus cad é mar chealúra mar sin héna bhí acu. Thug í fáilí garda an áireacht de Antrim a teachta an fork. I mean, léirigh sé sin an measa bhí acu ar a chéile. Bhí sé tan cinnte anna dheacair de uan na bhí treis a gríthe a fáil briste agus ganí de gimmar te gluthe canis na hair an son chun seasamh agus creadúnta thart dó siúd a bhí treis de chlí.
Bhí sé go húntaach agus an rud a sanna bhúntaach ní chinnta go raibh vinnig sin. Ach bhí rogha feachtaige I bhairlí ní slúthe an bhliain sin. Bhí cléadí cháile strathe in Miúra, so bhí Antrim as baile, agus de bhuaigh Antrim ortha in Miúra sa cléadí cháile sin. So ní gur tháinig sé seo in níor dúigar I bhairlí, bhí an rogha feachtacha, ach, fiechan rogha McFetridge, chuirte Seán O'Leary glíne with an déanamh céanna air agus, brisíoch bhí na smart amána ige. Agus, bhí fearn anna bha agus anna láidir có gan an áras. An tenor de bháin, nuair a bhuain tú gan chuine le bheith féine sa clísin, tá sé anna dheacair an santa héine ardach a ríist, cé gur cléthe canis na héirna bhí ann, ach an hype léir a leanin cléthe sin, agus iad I ggéir gála bhú gan éon taithíocha ar na bhú, agus dada bhí Jim Nelson sin in Líosan, the aglavaniana, the Clohenia, the Garginach. So he won Ben of the Bar Hardove, actually a Ben of the Vassa, Mar the fear Yakratico, Olavug is Diru and Gohekanish.
Okay, so Nicky, as you've mentioned, the stakes were all of a sudden heightened for the winners of the Tipperary Galway second semi-final, knowing that you were going to be facing Antrim and that potentially might have been a slightly more straightforward route to an All-Ireland than playing Offaly. But this whole thing was still wrapped up in the controversy that was the Tony Keady affair. And just to remind people, Tony Keady, having a linchpin of the Galway defence, had gone to New York after the league final, had played over there illegally, as it happens, got a 12-month ban as a result, which everybody thought at the time was going to be overturned and wasn't, lost the appeal. So heading into that All-Ireland semi-final, how much of a side issue or how much of a main issue did that Tony Keady affair become for your side?
I'm not sure it became a huge one for our side, but like it certainly, when you hear back after the match, like it really did play on Galway's minds that Tony was off. I mean, Tony was an outstanding player. He was. I think he was man of the match in '88 All Ireland for sure, maybe '87 as well, and he certainly was the linchpin. Now on the day, I think Sean Tracy played well, but there's no doubt that Tony Keady was a huge loss to Galway. And I think really, I suppose, I think Galway felt a bit victimised before the game started at all, really, in some senses that Tony Keady wasn't able to play. And maybe that was, I'm not sure it helped him on the day, and it certainly was, the stakes were very high going into the match. For us, we kind of had to win it because, we were 3 years on the road at this stage. And, like Galway had been the stumbling block for us. We had taken a lot of criticism for our performance in the '88 All-Ireland from all quarters, particularly even in Tipperary, and that we weren't able to stand up, we weren't strong enough, etc. And so the stakes were high enough for us without Tony Keady affair, really,
And I suppose they would have seen it as potentially double standards as well, because while Tony Keady was suspended, Paul Delaney, who had also been in America and who did line out for Tipperary at wing back that day and scored 3 points from frees, was allowed to play.
And subsequently didn't play in the Ireland final, by the way. Do you know what I mean? So yeah,
yes.
Like I'm not sure the circumstances really, but I think Tipperary voted for Tony Keady to play in the appeal. I don't think they certainly didn't object to him playing, to be honest. And I think we didn't care if Tony Keady played. To be honest, we would have been happier, I think, to see him playing and ultimately to beat him with Tony Keady playing.
All right, well, it was a massive game. Cluiche densko agus cluiche a bhí thar a bheith díon agus is stocha go raibh an binneacht sin sa chúlra an tam go léir agus seo chuimhin is na bóg fointí Tibredáin and Ag Galef.
And O'Ryan over there. That's Ray Dewan in an advanced state up there at left half forward for Galway. Michael Coleman threading it through dangerously. Neatly in towards Ian O'Ryan. And it's a goal! A goal by Ian O'Ryan. Ollie Kilkenny. Pat Fox trying to steal inside. Looking for another Tipperary score. Still Fox. Over the bar. Points so far. Doing well against Jerry McInerney. Again, that low ball in front of Nicky English. Sylvie closing it down on this occasion, but still affording English the chance to shoot and score. Ryan wasn't expecting it. This is Jerry Burke into Linsky. Galway playing it short and tight. That's gone out as far as Ray Duran off the post. A shot, a goal! Ian O'Ryan getting a second goal. Very positive attitude in the second half. Let's see can tip counter with Nicky English. Driven in smartly towards Fox. Pat Fox once again getting through. A goal! And back in the goal mount, high jinks. The referee has had a word with Sylvie Linane and he sent him off. Sylvie's been sent off. Good ball down to Brendan Linsky. Couldn't quite hold on to it, and it's Conor O'Donovan. And Michael McGrath's been sent off for this challenge. A dangerous challenge it certainly was, and the Tipperary fans ready to cheer the day when their team finally made the breakthrough. It's tip for the final.
I don't think they were of the serious nature. There were niggly little things, a lot of bitterness out there, but I don't think they were serious. Nobody went off injured, no stitches.
It was a game that both sides obviously were thinking of one thing and one thing only, and that was getting past the opposition and into the final. But it was no great spectacle and probably no great advertisement for hurling, the way that it finished up.
No, well, I think there was plenty of tension all through. And actually, the weather nearly reflected that. It became dark and it became very, the first match was played in sunshine. The second match was played in dark, thunderous clouds, and that wouldn't be one of my moments, really. I think it was a bookable offence, to be honest, no more than that. And certainly, I think the mood changed. It got even worse after that during the game, and certainly afterwards, it was plenty of controversy and plenty of hassle over that match for many years.
Sorry, Nicky, we missed the start of that. Was that you thought that the Sylvie Linane incident should have been a booking rather than a sending off? Was it?
Absolutely, yeah. It wasn't. That wouldn't have been a sending off, really, and I didn't think it would have been a sending off. You know what I mean? I regret actually having laid down. I thought maybe we might be able to. A booking wouldn't have been any harm, to be honest. But sending off really wasn't expected, and so that certainly didn't help the game, I would have thought, as well.
All right. Okay. So Ainstrom mar sin agus Tibredáin an trí go cluiche canis na hhéir agus fécha míon na bóg faointí sin Sarabhadach ribh sin mar sin stolam go cluichí lechanis na pelle atá amach roing inis agus muo in Ag Chiaráin de áit sa cluiche canis.
Little or no breeze. What breeze there is blowing from right to left. Donaghy. This is John McGoldrick once again, the player who played in that last pass intended for Kieran Corr. This time, Eugene McKenna breaking it down to Damien O'Hagan. Oh, good save! Harry McClure, no clean possession as Jimmy McGee was saying earlier. But here it's Shawnee Myler. Good save by Irwin. Myler still persisting. This is Corr having switched wings. Kieran Corr advancing. Peter Ford doing well, but only as far as O'Hagan. Off the post, back again. It's a goal! By Eugene McKenna. Willie Joe Bowden back with the latest style in hair gear. Fitzmaurice to take the 45. Noel Durkin looking for the equaliser, and it's there. Sides on level terms with 8 minutes remaining. Into the path of Noel Durkin. Trying to go round John McGoldrick. A lazily struck pass outside. That seems to be Dermot Flanagan. No, it's not. It's Kilkelly. And it's gone over the bar. Goal, belting it down towards Jimmy Burke. hasn't been too much in the action, but if he can hold it up now, that'll be enough. This is Fitzmaurice. There's players in support. Fitzmaurice going it alone. His confidence high, and he's put it over the bar. It's all over. A red letter day from Mayo, or better still, a red and green letter day as the colour champions defeat Tyrone and reach their first All-Ireland final for 38 years.
So Mayo tríge cléthe canis na hÉireann mar dúirt ar canning an son den géadú ó néidir Craig a héan agus sa lechanis eile bíad Corcaig agus Blacklia a bhí treis an lámh nuachtar áil ar chaun in na mí a thug aigear a chéile den áit eile sa cléthe canis.
Good centre. Oh, Vinnie Murphy. It's a goal for Dublin. A goal for Dublin after 11 minutes of the first half. Slocum going back, defusing that situation to Coonahan. Dublin absolutely taking this fight to Cork in the opening 10 minutes. Murphy again, confidence high, an exquisite kick. And that's over. So a dramatic moment in the first half, 21 minutes gone. O'Leary faces John Cleary from the penalty. Expertly put away. And John O'Leary lets it bounce. Oh, this could be serious. Paul McGrath. Oh, an amazing incident. It's a penalty. It's another penalty. With 31 minutes gone in the first half. Can tie up the scores. He's scored. The free taker about 50 metres out, lazily struck into the path of Dave Barry, taking it around Vinnie Murphy. Now composed, shooting and scoring. Cork are ahead by 3 points. Stark, who's certainly given his all, towards Joe McNally, takes it down beautifully. He's got support inside. Duff is calling for it. Still McNally. Oh, agonisingly wide at the target. And it's Cork for the final in 4 weeks' time. Cork's growing maturity, character and commitment was not to be outdone.
So, Denny, I suppose the question there is, was it the experience of the previous All-Ireland semi-finals helped you get over that line? Because it took 2 penalties, which you wouldn't normally see in a game. John Cairns' great save there at the end to keep you that little bit ahead. You didn't play well, I think it's fair to say, in that game, but you did enough.
Yeah, we kind of grinded out a result at that stage. The conditions that they weren't great, you know. There was a lot of sniggling stuff off the ball even before the match started as well during the All-Ireland final, you know. So it became a door sort of a match and more of a conflict, certainly more than a fancy football or nice football. But we were kind of determined to try and beat Dublin away from home as well. But it wasn't an epic match by any means, you know.
Yeah, I think it was the first time he actually beat Dublin in the championship, wasn't it?
It's a long time before that. I can't.
Yeah, I think I have that in my notes anyway. So obviously that would have been maybe something in the back of people's minds. But you're through to the final now, and you know at this stage that you're playing Mayo. And I suppose we'll talk about that one in a little bit, but we'll head on back to the hurling final now. So, Nicky, just the lead up to that final must have been incredible in Tipperary. There was a massive opportunity here. Antrim were rank outsiders. People were probably telling you that the game was won almost before you headed up. So how much of a distraction and how much did the players have to focus leading up to the game in Croke Park?
Really, we knew we still had to perform, you know, and I suppose really from an Antrim perspective, Tipperary were poor opponents to have in the All-Ireland final, you know, because they had the experience of losing the year before. You know, Galway could have been possibly an easier opponent in some regards because they'd been winning the All-Irelands, where we were losing and we just had to win. It didn't matter who it was we were playing, you know. And whereas, you know, it was all new to Antrim. They had a huge build up to the match themselves. There was a huge crowd from Antrim there. It was all new to them, meeting the president, etc., etc., etc. But we'd been on through all that protocol before and come home with our tails between our legs. So really, there was, you know, for us, and it was only about the game. Really, it wasn't about, you know, the build up to it or anything like that. And I had moved to Dublin at the time, so for me, the build up was completely different. I remember getting the bus from somewhere up in Turnuer on the Saturday evening to go into the Burlington Hotel to meet the lads, and my biggest worry was to get on the right bus. I didn't know what bus to get on, so like it was just completely different for me. I was completely relaxed, and but yeah, so it was a great chance for us. It was now or never. I'd say really was the way we thought it before that match.
All right, so mar dúirt Nicky and son an taí a bhí ag Tibredáin ó chaúint na bliana Rice an caigur has sé lo mar nuair a thug aintrim aig Tibredáin ag lethe canis na Héireann ó lua go lórsach lethe bhí sé sa léir céibh ó an ceansa.
But there is a substitute there in the background, but I don't think he's warming up. Wouldn't be at all surprised to see Danny McNaughton introduced at some future stage. Meanwhile, it's Declan Carr. Ambitiously in, high and over the crossbar.
Really pulling anything out and getting into it, especially with Nicky.
Nicky beating James McNaughton. Inside towards Cormac Bonner. A goal, that was it, yes! Paul McKillen gets it wide on that far side towards Danny McNaughton. It's blocked down well by Colin Bonner. Aidan McCarry. Still McCarry. Oh, it's a goal! A goal which this game has needed. And McCarry is the one to supply it. As far as John Lahey selling dummies. Ahead of Gary O'Kane. The vision then to spot that English was in an advanced position towards Pat Fox. Sharp. Elusive. And superb! Antrim now looking for a few more scores. McFetrich pulling on it. Comes out. And a goal! Another one! By Brian Donnelly. 2 minutes remaining as Desi Donnelly chips it in. It comes down off the goalkeeper. And it's another goal! It's another goal for Antrim. Paul McKillen. Aidan Ryan has shared in their monster triumphs. On to Nicky English. Oh, it's a bullet! It's a superb goal! That's it! Tipperary are the champions. The famine is well and truly over.
To our thousands of supporters who have travelled here today, I say to you, thank you very much, and I'm sorry it took 18 years to come back here.
Well, Nicky, it was, I'm sure, a great day for Tipperary after so many years in the wilderness. Possibly for the neutral, a bit of an anti-climax, but for you, you had a great day. You scored 212, which was a record in an All-Ireland final. Did you prefer to play that sort of a game where you had the sort of freedom of Croke Park, and would you put the value of that win ahead of a game where you really had to work so much harder for your scores and maybe to win a game by the odd point or whatever? You know, I suppose I'm trying to get a sense of, did you feel in any sense that the level of the achievement was slightly deflated by the gap between the teams on the day?
Maybe, but at the same time, you know, you have a win is win. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can only beat who's in front of you, really, you know. And actually, interestingly enough, in the early part of that game, Antrim had a lot of wides actually, and they didn't settle very well, and neither did we. And Declan Ryan got a very soft goal about 20 minutes into the game, and that settled us. And Antrim completely, you know, they never played as well as they were capable of playing. They were a bit like us in the previous All-Irelands. But yeah, sure. Look, you'd love to be, you know, winning an extra, you know, in injury time with a last-minute goal. But at the same time, a win is a win, Micheál. And for us, we had so much disappointment in the locker at that stage, and we tried so hard. You know, I'd been playing since my championship debut was in '82. So, you know, we'd been 7 or 8 years at it, and didn't really matter who was there at the finish. We just wanted to win it, you know.
And would you put a more value on that being the first one that you had won after such a big gap, or would you say that the 91 one where you played Kilkenny and would have been a tighter affair? Which would you prefer? Which would you value?
Well, I think really 91 was another one we had to win, because really we had only, you know, if you only had beaten Antrim, if you like, with all due respect to Antrim, in one All-Ireland final, and that was the end of it, well, maybe that wouldn't have been accepted as much. Whereas, you know, we lost to Cork in 1990 in the Munster final, really unexpectedly from, you know, we were hot favourites to do that. And then to come back in 91 to beat Kilkenny was fantastic. For me, maybe personally not as good because I was injured for that match. and for a lot of that season. But at the same time, it was, I suppose, yes, that was, if you're looking at it, I have two All-Irelands, the Kilkenny one really was the most satisfying, even though personally the other one was better for me.
Okay. Brian, a fechan ar Antrim, bhí sin trua é, but, iglaí den torchin gomininic the Iran atá nua, being in deis cailte, how she connic mar le Portlárig a tamil de bhliantó hin, being in cléthe imethe anna lua man a hocríonn tú isteach sa cléthe in am.
Agus níor hocréidir isteach, agus is stoine chum agra pocréirice ige Antrim sa chléis nar scóráil a cúdúig. Ach, má hasam í tíir neomad amháin, bhí búres únta bog ige Tipperdarm tascin go léir sin. Ach becheap beidir ahantas úirt don job a bhí dianta ag Antrim mar éireann, agus go háirithe beidir gin main Georgian Nelson mar le tascin go léir bhfuil umíocht dhéir idir na fórne thuas an Antrim. Na fórne sa chair agus na fórne á thuaigs na gaunta. Ach, leis sin de bhí sort, bhí sé dachar ar bhainisteoirí riime sin an dá ná sin a thuair le chéile. But deireadh le Jim Nelson is sin a dhéanamh agus de bhris sé síos pe naidas nó pe aspa cardis I bhíidir na clubbanna na gaunta agus clubbanna na carach. Agus dhéon sé fuireann maith a bhón lú agus dan in den áitreint na himimeóirí úntacha bhí có. Agus ba bhór an trú ar lí, ach mar dúir tanna bhí sé anna dheachar ar fad dóibh ón muic a bheith button ar íomháilí sa chléile cheannis techt an úsúig sin agus an sunta héna bhárdach a rééis de iarn a bhí go raibh go leor le buchtantacha nuair le cailúnta go beidir Tipperdarm agus níor bhéine tú chance de Antrim bhí brú ó bhoscar Tipperdarm an lásan. So is dóin go ceart leachtas úir de Antrim ceannar imréidir go maith as an naisce bhí déanta go fiú dulcha bhhaidir sin bhfuil ceannis.
Ní réinteas faoi sin. Ceir go leor tá cluiche dearnach sriste in Isegring agus sin an ceann mór pelle. So tréis de chorcaig cluiche canis na hhéir na chaúint féthó le gábhlíon na nuasca an áras ceann amháinnica in áhimmert agus an dá uair in ag can na mí. Bhí imethe as a gomórtas ag go buinte seo muo a bhí arreistach le canis den géad ó an éidir chuige héan, Hasad a riad agus Sam Maguire.
The player they've said wouldn't play for a year. Referee allows him an advantage. Paul McGrath. Here's Tompkins steadying himself. Right-footed, it's curling. It's gone over. Very sound judgment. Micheál Collins. Willie Joe Padden, superb. Now can they finish? Under pressure. Oh, that's a mighty one from Willie Joe Padden and Mayo off the mark. Not such a well-struck one. Dave Barry picking it up. Good menacing run by Dave Barry. The outside of the boot again and it curls in and that's gone over as well. His first point. That particular gap. Michael Slocum adding to it there. It's with Kevin McStay. A well-struck left-footed shot by McStay and again there's just a point difference between the teams. Steddy McCarthy trying to read it but it's Liam McHale getting there first. Inside towards Anthony Finnerty. And it's Noel Durkin. This is Finnerty. That's a goal! Niall Cahalane trying to take the game by the scruff of the neck for Cork. Michael McCarthy rounding Dermot Flanagan. Still Flanagan in pursuit. McCarthy kicking, scoring, and Cork have gone in front once again. And there it is. Cork are the All-Ireland football champions. For Billy Morgan's men, the Odyssey ends in some style.
So, Jenny, it was, I suppose, by comparison with the previous two finals that you'd lost, it was the polar opposite. It was a grand open game of football. I think out of the 17 Cork points, 16 of them came from play. It was, I'd say, a pleasure to play in, was it? Was it one of those games where you could sort of say, this is what it's all about and this is the way we should be winning these finals?
Yeah, it was needed. I think it was needed, and it was pleasurable to play in. I mean, it was a very open game. It was a tough game, but it was a very open game, and the the weather was good and the atmosphere was there and everything else. So it was one of the better finals. I know we won it and that sort of thing, but it was a very pleasurable game.
Of course, the whole thing, the big discussion always is the what ifs. And the what if Anthony Finnerty's the one that we actually didn't show it there, but he obviously gets the goal for Mayo, and then he had a great chance that went narrowly wide a little bit later on, which would have put massive pressure. Had that gone in, would Cork have wobbled, do you think?
I think there was a wobble there, all right. The amazing thing about that is that we found out after that match, John Kearns actually touched the ball and it went out. He thought that the umpires had seen it, that it went out for a 50, and when he saw that the wave wide, he was a happy man as well. But technically, John Kearns stopped it from at least hitting the post anyhow. But it was amazing that we got away with that thing on the day, you know.
Yeah, I believe I saw an interview Anthony did. He says there's not a day passes where he doesn't think of what might have happened had that one gone in. But anyway, look, that's the way.
Maybe he doesn't. He probably doesn't even know that John Kearns saved it as well, so he might feel a bit better now at this stage. The only thing about just watching some of the football games there, a fella that was very underrated for us, was Paul. If people ask me who was one of the best forwards who played with, obviously there's a lot of obvious fellas who'd say, but Paul McGrath would be definitely up in my top three, to play with. He kind of came and played brilliant football for the amount of times he was there, and then he disappeared quite fast, which was a choice that he did himself. But he was an amazing player, and he's up there with the best of them, you know.
All right. And Denny, finally, I suppose for you, that was the end. That was your last game in the Cork jersey, wasn't it? I mean, you were there standing on the steps of the Hogan stand, 37 years of age. You probably thought the chance was gone, and captaining Cork to your first All-Ireland title. Yeah,
I kind of made up my mind that I knew that I wasn't at the prime of at 37, but my plan was, and I kind of said it to Billy, that I had a lot of very good forwards around me and midfield and stuff like that. So anytime I was going to get the ball, I was going to look for the fella who was in the best position rather than being goal conscious myself. So I had Paul McGrath, I had a lot going with him, and Davy Barry and Larry and John Cleary. They're all scorers. So I kind of put myself in the second division here, and I said, look, this is about the team, and whatever happens, I'm going to look for one of these guys to give the ball to as quickly as possible. So I kind of walked through that season, being a workhorse for the want of a word, which I know I'm not big or anything like that, but I kind of set myself up to be that type of fella in the forward line, and it worked for me as well, because I was quite happy with it. Billy and the lads were happy with the situation as well. But no, I knew the minute the final was said, Lorne, that I was finished. Billy said, don't announce anything, or we'd like to use you maybe as a sub next year or something like that, with months to come after that. But I knew it was my last time in a dressing room with Cork. But it turned out great for me, you know, because it could have collapsed in my face as well, you know, but it turned out well for me at the end of the day, you know.
Absolutely. Okay, great way to go out. And Nicky, we leave the final word to you. Reflections on that year, you know, and when you sat back in the winter and you look back on having won the All-Ireland after such a long time for a county like Tipperary, there must have been great celebrations going on. When you look back and you assess the importance of that year in terms of reactivating hurling and at a high level in Tipperary, how important was it?
Well, I suppose, you know, it was then or never for us, really. That was my thoughts going into '89. So yes, we really enjoyed winning it, and you know, we paid the price maybe in 1990 after enjoying it maybe too much, but you know, it broke that kind of long gap of that 18 years, and you know, that alone, and that team was a good team. We had a lot of really good players, a lot of great forwards, and you know, it was great to get the notch on the board finally. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, Deireadh le mearú díobh se sawala go mbeidh deise go fechan siar an na bóg faointí sin agus ó rainn cluichí eile nach chiad tránna dé dánig nar a bheith GAA bio hart agus leis sin tagann sé go dtí deire an séasúir seo tá mí treis na cluichí mór a go léir os na hochtaldaí a chlúdach san 1989 sriste going so deire leis an tra de fad chréalta seo go léir so gur mágah se as bheith a fechant ar a gárling má bhfuchas comala Nicky English le Denny Allen agus le Brian Tars. Thanks lads, I really enjoyed the chat here today.
Thanks me all.
Sure maith go léir. Okay, go gasamíd na go léir ar chéile an chéad rada wing ar fad slán.